In this video, we're covering Understanding and Using English Grammar, 5th edition. We're on page 187, chapter 10, Modals. We're looking at section 2, expressing the past, necessity, advisability, and expectation using modals. To express necessity, there are 3 modals: have to or has to, have got to or has got to, and must. Let's look at 3 examples. A, Julie has to get a visa. B, Julie has got to get a visa. Or C, Julia must get a visa. All 3 of these mean the same thing. It is necessary. Julie is required. Julia needs a visa. When we express this idea of necessity in the past, we have only one option: had to. Julia had to get a visa. Had to means needed to. Julia needed to get a visa. There is no other past form for must when it means necessary, a necessity, or have got to. So to express necessity in the past, we use had to only. For advisability, when we're giving an advice, a piece of advice or recommendation, we have 3 modals in the present. Let's look at example E. I should study for the test. I want to pass it. Should. Example F. I ought to study for the test. Ought to or oughta. Example G. I had better study for the test, or I'd better. For past advisability, we use should have or ought to have and the past participle. So that's a should or ought to with the present perfect tense, have plus past participle. So if we're talking about the past and I failed the test, example H, I could say I should have studied for it. Example I ought to have studied for it. Or example J, I shouldn't have gone to the movies the night before. In the past, should is more common than ought to, and the past form of had better, which would be had better have, is almost never used. So it's not impossible, but it's very rare. You could say he had better have studied. That's just very rarely used. We usually use should have in the past. That's the most common. Okay? In the meaning, for example, H and I, is that studying was a good idea, but I didn't do it. I made a mistake. Oops, I should have studied. I ought to have studied, but I didn't. The meaning in J is that it was a bad idea to go to the movies. I made a mistake. Oops, okay? I shouldn't have gone to the movies. The usual pronunciation of should have is should have, or shoulda, shoulda. I should have studied. I should have studied. For expectation, in the present, we use supposed to. Example K, we are supposed to leave now. It is expected to leave now. If we are talking about the past, a past expectation that was unfulfilled, an unfulfilled expectation or obligation in the past. We were supposed to leave last week. We did not. So when you hear someone say we were supposed to do something, or I was supposed to do something, you were supposed to do something, that past tense was supposed, it didn't happen. It was supposed to, there were plans, there was expectation, there was an obligation, but it was unfulfilled. It didn't happen. In example M, we say the mail should be here. This is a current present expectation. I expect the mail to be here soon. The mail should be here now, or should be here soon. If I'm talking in the past about a past expectation, in example M, the mail should have been here by now. We use the should have with the past participle. So the speaker expected something to happen, but it may or may not have occurred. Probably not. The mail should have been here by now. It's not here. I expected the mail to be here by now. It should have been here by now, but it's late. For some reason, it's not here. Let's practice and use some examples. Okay. In number 1, we have necessity. I have to meet with my tutor after class today. Future. I must meet with my tutor after class today. I've got to meet with my tutor after class today. What about past tense? Yesterday, we only have one option. There is no past form of have got to. There's no past form of must for necessity. We have one option. I had to meet with my tutor after class yesterday. Stop the video, read number 2 through 5, try them out, give it a try, and when you're ready to check your answers, restart the video. Okay, welcome back. I hope this wasn't too difficult. Let's look at number 2 and check our answers. I have to study tonight. I must study tonight. I've got to study tonight. That's future. But if I'm talking about last night, in the past, I had to study last night. Okay. Well, number 1 should be I had to meet with my tutor. We need the verb, modal and verb. Right? Number 3, I've got to return some books to the library. I must return. I have to return. I had to return. Only one option. Number 4, again, in the past, I must register. I had to register. And number 5, I've got to write an essay this weekend. I had to write an essay last weekend. Okay. Let's do a couple of other little practice just to make sure that we've got it. Okay. So let's go over these. Again, I will give you some examples. Read, pause the video, and when you're ready to check your answer, you can start the video again. Past necessity, she must study for the exam now. She must study for the exam tomorrow. Yesterday, she had to study for the exam yesterday. We have got to be on time for class every day. That's habitual, that's routine. We have got to be on time for class next week. It's future. What about last week? In the past, we had to be on time for class last week. Let's look at past advisability. You should arrive early for your appointment. So this is advice for later, advice for the future. You should arrive early for your appointment. If I'm talking about the past, you did not arrive early. Okay, you missed your appointment. You were late. How would I use the modal should in the past? You should have arrived early for your appointment. You should study. So this is advice for tomorrow's test, advice for the future. If I'm talking about the past, you did not study and you failed. You should have studied for the test. So if you ever hear somebody saying, I should have done this, I should have done that, it means they didn't do it. They wish that they had done it, but they didn't do it. Something bad happened. You know, I didn't study and I got a bad grade. I should have studied. Okay? I didn't get my wife a birthday gift and my wife got angry. I should have bought her a birthday gift. Now we have unfulfilled expectation. We are supposed to leave at 8 o'clock tonight. So that's a current or a future obligation. We're supposed to leave tonight. If I'm talking about last night, I would say we were supposed to leave at 8 o'clock last night, but we got there late. Again, a past expectation, it should take about 3 hours to get there. So currently, right now, I expect a 3-hour drive. I'm driving to a city 3 hours away. It should take about 3 hours. But in the past, I'm talking about the past, it did not take 3 hours. It took more than 3 hours because we got stuck in traffic. So we would say it should have taken 3 hours, but we got stuck in traffic. Okay, if you have any questions, please write a question in the comments below. Thanks for watching this video.